There it is. I'm going to just start talking now because I know that YouTube always has a bit of latency, so I'll just go ahead and start speaking. We are now live, Weather Center live, 8 a.m. on March 29th. I did not think we were going to be rounding out the month on this note. Pay no attention to the model data I have pulled up behind me. I'm trying to get myself situated this morning. Hair is done. No more bedhead. Coffee is brewed, but first coffee. We're going to be taking a deep dive into everything this morning together, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. I don't anticipate a lot of folks are going to be joining us. This is very, very unscheduled for the Weather Center, but you know what? We got to get this weather brief out there. It was actually a recommendation from one of my fellow followers, good acquaintance of mine on Instagram that I'm always talking back and forth with. He brought up the notion that we have a 30% severe weather designation for day 4 now. So I'm very, very curious to see what it is we wake up to. I might have to delay my going to the air show tomorrow morning if we see an enhanced risk, let alone a moderate risk on our charts tomorrow morning, because it's very rare for them to put an enhanced, a 30 percentile on day 4, which means confidence is very, very high. The 30%, I try to remind folks, especially on TikTok, not to get too fixated on the 15, 20, 2%, etc. Some people will still get that confused and they'll think, oh, there's only a 2% chance of a tornado. Why are we panicking? And it's like, no. 2% means within only a 25 nautical mile grid box. And in this case, a 30% chance within 25 nautical miles of each other is a very small area when you think about it in the grand scheme of CONUS. And that also means that their confidence is very high. PEXTT, good morning. Glad to have you listening in on the way to work this morning. Feels very podcast-ish, which I haven't forgotten about. Side plug, Alfalfa Bill Enjoyer. I do agree. We will see what happens, because to tell you the truth, it's very interesting that they went with the 30 wow, there's Mike Tyson again, with this 30 percentile risk, but then looking at all of our overnight 0 and 6Z data, it looks almost as if our severe weather region, if you will, has shrunk a little bit. The low does look a little bit more consolidated. Once again, we are still continuing to see that strengthening trend that suddenly started yesterday early in the morning. And I'm noticing some discontinuities between things like the SIPs, the MLP, the CPU, and what Storm Prediction Center is looking at. So we're going to hopefully try to hone that in the short time I can be live with you guys this morning. One Nation Weather, good morning. Happy Friday. Hope you're doing well today. Doing all right, definitely. Doing all right. It's going to be a very fast-paced day. I got a lot going on today, but you know what? We're going to break in, and we're going to do an early morning brief with you guys. We're going to be sipping on some coffee. I hope y'all got your morning brew with you. We're all going to caffeinate and wake up together. So this is going to be our day 1 risk, and surprisingly, they actually have a level 1 risk up there for parts of Wisconsin, Iowa, and Illinois. So we're going to have to kind of look at that very briefly, because we don't want to disregard the smaller scale risks despite what's on the table as of right now. Day 2, we're back to just some good old garden variety thunderstorms. Day 3, that expansive marginal risk. I'm noticing this as well. I saw this when I first woke up. I didn't look at days 4 through 8, but I did see that they have this elongated region of level 1 marginal risk up there from the central plains of Missouri and Iowa through Illinois, Indiana, and into Ohio, trying to get into West Virginia and the northern periphery of Kentucky as well. So we're going to take a glance at that, and then this is the elephant in the room. So we had this large area of 15% highlighted yesterday. What everyone is more or less kind of like whoa about right now is this 30% right in through here from central and east Oklahoma all the way up into the very westernmost border of Illinois through the heart of Missouri. And you could see some possible strong storms in southeast Kansas. And it's kind of wild because, again, you know, looking at our latest iterations of all of our models, it looks like a large majority of the severe weather is actually going to kind of shave this in half. It kind of wants to form it up right in through here and then maybe push it off towards the east. But again, these are very prelim looks, guys. We're going to try to digest this as fast as we can on the stream this morning as I try to, boom, wake up. So we're going to come over to Windy right now, because Windy, again, is a very phenomenal tool alongside my good old best friend Theta E, because I want to highlight where it is we stand currently. Because right now and that's kind of why I'm a little astonished that they're trying to give us a marginal risk up there over Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, because if you look, we have a really deep occluded system off the coast. Here's our frontal boundary. We're waking up to, once again, some very, very pleasant conditions. If you look at the surface observations, we're down to 39 in Atlanta, 41 in Charlotte, 41 down in Jackson, 52 right along the coast in NOLA, and then Tampa Bay even is at 57 degrees. So we are very, very modified continental polar this morning. And if you look at the return flow around this high pressure, you can see there really isn't much of a low-level component to get that instability up into that region highlighted for the level 1 risk. I do see some cyclogenesis. I see a low spinning right here. Looks like a little bit of an embedded vortice there. And you have this channeling of southerly flow. But the reason I'm not too concerned about that is, once again, a little good geographic reference point. If you come down just a little further to the south, look at the Tehuantepec Channel right through here. You see that increase, that fire hose effect in your winds? That means we have CP air, we have polar air kind of nestling in through that region and funneling out into the eastern Pacific. So that means that this entire area is underneath polar air. There's your front, plain as day. There's your cold front moving through. That's where I would draw it. So I don't know. I don't know where they're getting the level 1 risk today. I don't really see it too much. Remains to be seen. By the way, if I have anyone watching in terms of this system that was out here that some folks are mentioning could have become a subtropical system at one point in time, yes and no. Maybe. It's kind of, it's kind of a tough call to say that it had gone tropical or subtropical storm for like 5 minutes. I know that's obviously an exaggeration. They're not saying that specifically, but that's tough because if you guys remember, the surface temperatures of the ocean waters up here are actually colder than they are everywhere else. We have our anomaly chart that looks like a horseshoe. So I don't know. I think that was just a very, very bona fide, deep occluded low out there that maybe tried to break away from fronts, but even then, when we looked at it the other day, we had that very strong low pressure system off here where I was kind of describing the strong funneling of winds on the back side of it, so it still looked like it was attached to fronts and jet supported, so I don't know. Just to kind of answer that question, because I do believe I got a couple comments on that yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. All right, so we're going to come on over to our satellite imagery. We always want to look at our live data first. The live data is our best friend in a situation like this, especially since we are still 4 to 5 days away. And this is where we stand right now. Eastern half of the country, kaput. There's nothing going on for us in the eastern half. In fact, it's going to be a marvelous weekend from the Great Lakes all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico coastline. Not a whole lot going on. We still have and this is it right here, as a matter of fact, guys. This guy right here. Folks have been mentioning it. There's a possibility that this could be a subtropical storm. It does have some convection with it, and now at this point, it has wandered into those warmer Atlantic waters. So could it try to take on a little bit of subtropical characteristics, try to pull up that thunderstorm activity, and begin that latent heat exchange? Possibly. It looks like on the eastern quadrant of it, we have some pretty decent thunderstorm activity with lots of dry air still getting sucked in on the backside of it. So apples to oranges. That's not what the point of this video is about. But you can see back off the coast, very, very, very intense troughing right in through there. Almost like a miniature atmospheric river. I wouldn't go as far as to say it's an atmospheric river, but we have that south side, the southeast periphery of that jet digging into the west coast of California, and we have a really solid barotropic-looking low feature within the cold sector of that outlining jet, and that energy is just spilling across the four corners, the Intermountain West, out into the plains. I'll go ahead and draw it so you guys can see. And then we have our good old El Nino jet. Low-key, I'm very excited for that to go away. I'm tired of briefing that already. El Nino. Every video, there's got to be a mention of El Nino. Dude's hogging the attention. So it's these areas on the backside of what we have over much of the lower 48 that is going to help to ignite the setup. Now, again, as we briefed on, I believe it was Monday, this here is going to be the anomaly. If we can get this dry air out, and I know this is mid-level water vapor, so it doesn't do us the full big picture in the low levels or the upper levels, but it's this CP air mass that's being pulled down behind our mature wave off the northeast coastline that is very heavily going to dictate where it is that this severe weather sector, as we like to call it, is going to establish itself. This is Weather Prediction Center's website. We're going to look at their mock charts. So as of today, we have a bit of a warm sector up there, a weak warm sector. I know that they're highlighting the marginal risk because of the warm front, but look at there's the high pressure, plain as day. This is your CP high pressure right here. There's not a whole lot going to happen with this. This is not conducive for thunderstorms. So, I mean, maybe we'll see something up there. 18Z storm. I mean, Weather Prediction Center doesn't have anything up there. Notice, I mean, they have a little risk for some thunderstorm activity. We'll have to do a little bit of investigating when we get into the surface observations, see where we stand right now. And notice it goes stationary as well because of all that colder air up to the north as well. It's not really going to advect any further to the north. And then here's our system coming across the west coast, getting ready to make itself known over the Rockies before ejecting out into the Central Plains. Go forward in time to Sunday. Here she is. Very, very deep occluded system that's eventually going to undergo triple point cyclogenesis as it kicks out over the Front Range and into the Midwest, the central Great Plains area. And we already have our warm sector beginning to establish itself and try to push to the north. And notice they have this little hatched area for thunderstorms already starting to pop off. And that makes sense. We could see a little bit of overrunning with that warm air trying to come up from the south. Let me clear the ink here so I can draw a little bit more. Warm air trying to reintrude from the south, overrunning that polar air to the north. We could get a little bit of convective activity up there, thunderstorm activity anyways, as this system continues to march its way over the Rockies. It's the triple point we want to watch closely. I'll mark that with an X, and we'll go to 12Z on Monday, and there you have it. If you notice, right where I had my X drawn, we have our old parent low stuck up in the terrain of the Four Corners, the Northwest Four Corners states, Utah. And then here is our main event. We have our frontal system really beginning to kick out over the southern Central Plains, and then our warm sector is really going to blow up. And what's crazy, too, is if you look at their charts, WPC, anyways, they don't have the red shading for the thunderstorms, or the dark red shading. They just have the hatched area for thunderstorms. So very interesting there as well, and this actually does not mesh well with what Storm Prediction Center is highlighting either. This is a little bit more in line with what the SIPS from Colorado State University is pinging on, because it does look like we get a little bit of a threat for severe weather back where our 30% is highlighted, but then it dips south as opposed to continuing off towards the north and east. So already we're seeing a discontinuity between two different weather sources. Storm Prediction Center, Weather Prediction Center are two different entities, and clearly here they're kind of going off in two different directions. These are more of your synoptic analysts. The Storm Prediction Center is going to be more of your large scale, but primarily based at that mesoscale or smaller to micro scale level. All right, let's get into some of the meat and potatoes here. We're going to be pulling this up together as we go because I don't have everything fully set up. I was not anticipating doing this brief this morning, but you know what? We're going in. We're going to get into the weeds together, shall we? So this is where we stand now. We got actually, you know what? I can see it. Okay, a little bit of a little moist tongue right in through here. We have some pretty decent theta values getting up there. I don't disagree now with their level 1 risk. You can see that there is a funneling of that trademark springtime moist tongue, as we like to call it, all the way up through the plains into the Midwest. That could help to ignite some thunderstorm activity as we go through max heating of the afternoon today. Now let's fast forward. Here comes our system out west, and oh yeah, the theta values are really getting up there. Yep, definitely getting up there. Definitely looking a lot more worrisome, to tell you the truth. This is a night and day difference too, guys. I want you to take a mental picture of this, and we're going to go back in time to, when did we do our briefing? Today's the 29th. It would have been Monday, so we'll go to 12Z on the 26th and go forward, and yeah, see, big difference. Big difference in our indications here. It does not look like the warm sector wanted to establish itself very much. This is max heating of the day, obviously, so it's going to look a little more menacing. If you go from 12Z on the 26th to 0Z now, this morning, massive difference. And look at that, as a matter of fact, too. We don't want to ignore that returning of our warm conveyor right there. I know this is after the fact, but I also want to pay close attention to that in case anything does try to sneak in after this system blows through. But anyways, if you notice, night and day difference, even overnight, those theta values. This is now early in the morning. Early in the morning. And notice our theta values have not gone away. We have a very distinct sector of modified maritime tropical air. And look at this big discontinuity in our theta values encroaching on all sides. Still a little bit of modifying polar air in the lee of the Appalachians. Florida looks to be fairly dry. Will probably still be warm regardless on April 1st. But this, remember, is 6Z in the morning. And I know this doesn't look very different, but remember the timing. If you look at something 18Z to 21Z, they're going to look darker because we have the sunshine, the radiation, heating the Earth's surface. In this case, at 6 Zulu, when the sun has already been down for quite a bit of time, we still have what the models were reflecting at max heating of the day back at 12Z on the 26th and forward from there. If I were to go forward just a couple more hours, that's 6, 9, 12, 15, 18Z, and then 21Z, max heating of the day. Look at this wonderful gradient right here, night and day gradient. You could, again, if you cannot draw this on your synoptic analysis charts, then you should just quit and hang up your coat, because that is a plain as day, warm and cold sector. So that makes a lot of sense. And look at how we're starting to get some pinkish theta values up into Texas, southern Oklahoma, into Louisiana as well. So very, very interesting. Very interesting. Now, my question is, though, what are we seeing in terms of a low-level jet? Because the low-level jet, when I glanced at it, did not look as impressive. There it is. That's probably why. Okay. This is probably why they have that severe weather threat bumped up to the north as opposed to WPC down towards the south with their thunderstorm depiction, and why the CSU model has it further to the south. They're looking at primarily where our low-level jet is going to be, and that is pretty impressive, although I will openly say I think we've seen it trend down a little bit in comparison to yesterday. Yeah, look at that. Yesterday we had a monster low-level jet coming in. It looks like we had like a weak mid-level jet max around in the base of our subtropical or our modifying high pressure down here that helped to bring in a little bit more. So definitely a much more robust low-level jet yesterday that the models were identifying, with a deepening low as it pressed into the Midwest and the Great Lakes. And then we come over to this morning, not as impressive. And it looks like that low-level jet has moved off to the east a little bit, which again, we don't want to take away from it. Just because I'm using terminology like, oh, it's weakened, etc., does not mean that the threat is diminishing. It's just a matter of we have to reinstigate or reinvestigate if it's shifting our threat. And it's cool, too. You can actually really, really pinpoint where our low or our mid-level front is right on through here. There's your mid-level fronts. Very hard to tell, but if you notice, and I'll try to take you guys in. Let me see if I can zoom the chart in a little bit so you can see, do a little bit of synoptic analysis for you. There we go. Beautiful. That's what I was looking for. Let's close that. Nope, I do not want to skew T right now. Thank you. So if you look really close, right in through here, notice this northerly fetch of wind, and then we suddenly back to the west. So there's your upper front, your 850 millibar cold front. And then if you notice right in through here, we have winds out of the southwest, and then they suddenly shift to the east. So there's your upper warm front. So definitely right in through here, we could see some very, very nasty storms. Very nasty storms. And again, like I said, even though I've mentioned that the low-level jet has weakened, a low-level jet that could give us severe weather, tornadoes, hail, etc., only needs to be in excess of 35 knots. And here we have 60, 65 knots. So very good low-level jet. We can check that box. This whole area could potentially be ripe for some severe weather activity. I'm going to leave you guys at this perspective, move my Epic pen out of the way so I can see. Let's go over to our surface-based cape, because that's another thing, too. If we're starting to see the models back us out of possibly being capped, that's also probably why... Actually, you know what? Okay, there it is. All right. So I don't know. Max heating of the day, it looks like right in through here we become uncapped, and those are some very impressive cape values as well. Those are easily, 2,000 joules per kilogram, hovering anywhere between 1,000 to 2,000 joules. The general average looks to be about 1,400 joules per kilogram. So if anything, if I remember somebody in the chat, I think it was Devil Charger, had mentioned, somebody in the chat mentioned that they're broad brushing it, just kind of expanding it to cover their bases. And I do agree with your statement. It looks like they're just blanket protecting all of us, because look at all this cape that could potentially go. If we bust that cap, that's a whole area of thunderstorm activity, whereas the models at this preliminary stage are thinking we're only going to become uncapped for this more localized area, which makes sense. I agree with it. The thing that I'm looking at here, though, is we have the area up to the north, and it almost looks like day 5 should have a much larger area, because look at all this potentially uncapped cape all the way down to the Gulf Coast Dixie Alley area. So I'm really curious to see exactly what happens on their charts when we wake up tomorrow morning as we get in within range. What does the ML cape look like, the mixing layer cape, once we get a little bit of mixing of the day going on? Yeah, so ML cape definitely looks about the same. Definitely looking at that same geographic area for day 5, Tuesday. So Tuesday still looks like it's going to be probably the worst of the event. Some folks are bullseyeing Monday. Monday is definitely going to be a sporty day, but I'm still thinking personally Tuesday is going to be a day we got to watch for very closely. What does the lid strength look like? How capped are we on Tuesday? So yeah, almost no cap out there. Look how the model does an outstanding job of showing the mountains, though, in the lee of the mountain cold air damming just a little bit. That's pretty neat, the resolution on that. So it definitely looks like we're going to go uncapped. That's for certain. But it looks like a much larger event could take shape on to Tuesday. So Tuesday is going to be the day we really need to watch closely for our folks in the Midwest, Ohio, Mississippi valleys, and so on. I read in the discussion that lapse rates are very, very favorable, and indeed they are. But again, wow, look at that. So the SIPs, I'm going to pull up the SIPs here in a second. The SIPs is highlighting the southeast. So now we have a point of contention here, because these mid-level lapse rates right here, 700 to 500, do not line up with where we have our severe weather indicated. On day 1, or I should say on day 4 they do, most definitely. Day 5 they do not. Day 5 it's down towards the southeast. So now this definitely looks interesting. Let me go back to the SPC graphics. Let's go to national. I want to see, just for a sanity check. Yeah, see, so they have day 5 up here, but looking at where our lapse rates, our cape, our most unstable, I should say our mixing layer cape sets itself up, it almost looks like their day 5 risk should be down here. Almost. We could go onto their website and kind of do another sanity check as to what they're looking at as well to double check ourselves. Let me close this window up just a little bit so we can get a better, there we go. What do low-level lapse rates look like? Here's Tuesday. All right, so yeah, now we're okay. Low-level lapse rates look very impressive in the Midwest, just as impressive a little bit down in the Southeast. So, that's what I have to say to that, is a big, I got to scratch my chin and get a sip of coffee. Because low-level lapse rates are very favorable, phenomenal, to tell you the truth. We are definitely within that almost absolutely unstable threshold, it looks like, up here into Indiana, parts of Kentucky, getting out of Illinois, headed into Ohio. But then we also have those fairly unstable low-level lapse rates. And this is, just to give you a reference point, the first 3,000 to 5,000 feet-ish of the atmosphere. 700 to 500 is going to be just above that, about, I believe, 5 to about 10,000 feet, give or take, maybe 13,000 feet. And the reason those are important is if you can get that lapse rate very unstable in the low levels and continue that trend as you elevate through the level of free convection, the LFC, your thunderstorms are just going to blow up. That's more cape, that's more updraft potential, that's a greater chance of severe weather. If you have good low-level lapse rates, but not so good mid-level lapse rates, you're going to be capped. You're going to have low-topped convection. And then vice versa. If you don't have very good low-level lapse rates, but good mid-level, then you're going to end up with that elevated convective risk. So in this case, we're kind of out of phase again, because looking at low-level lapse rates, these are impressive up in the Midwest. This is still impressive down in the Southeast, but then we lose our mid-level lapse rates. We gain our mid-level lapse rate. I shouldn't put an X. I should put a check mark. Check mark here, X here. So let's head on over to the SIPs real quick and see what we got going on over there. Because I know the SIPs is in agreement with what I was just briefing. Let's go to day 4. There's your day 4 risk, even further to the south than what Storm Prediction Center has highlighted. And then day 5, check this out. See that? Day 5, they got us definitely more covered down in the southeast than they do in the Midwest and the Northeast. And I think what the SIPs is thinking is exactly what we're in line with. The atmospheric profile, if you look at it from a vertical standpoint, from the surface all the way up to the troposphere, the tropopause, where your weather stops, your physical weather anyways, you just have a better atmospheric profile down towards the southeast than up in the north. So I might do pardon my language, I'll just say gutsy call and potentially brief forward that we might need to watch a little bit closer in the southeast than we do up in the Midwest. I do think that we still have a threat out and through here, but it potentially could migrate down towards the southeast more so than the northeast. And I think I do agree with this. If you think about it thermodynamically, we have high pressure up here that is kind of suppressing our warm front from going any further to the north. And then we have a very elongated cold front down at the surface that's going to sweep through like this. So if you think about it, as that cool air gets pulled in on the back side of the low, if you think about it from like a lava lamp perspective, you're going to have that area kink down towards the south and then rush southeast. So it does make sense that our sector, our warm sector, would go from here to here as everything gets pulled in. So, SIPS did a very good job with our last couple of severe weather risks. Same thing with that computer model learning or that machine learning, whatever it's called. I forget the acronym for it, the MLP or whatever, did a phenomenal job with our tornado outbreak that occurred a few weeks ago up in the north. So I think I'm going to side with this. I think we're still going to see some adjustments from Storm Prediction Center here very soon. And my best guess, just looking at what I can in the time that I have, severe weather, undoubtedly, confidence is very high. Plains, Dixie Alley. And then now we're at a point of contention of how far to the north is it going to go and how far to the south is it going to go. So day 4, we're really reining it in. Day 5 is still a little up in the air. Definitely going to happen, but it's up in the air. Let's see, day 4, they had it small. Day 5, and then day 6. Yeah, see, again, the SIPS is showing very good run-to-run continuity as well. The SIPS had it down there in the southeast. What about on the 27th? Let's go back 2 days to Wednesday. Yeah, look at that. Oh, wait, no, never mind. Pardon me. This is day 1. This is what did happen, and it nailed it, actually, so verifying very well. There's day 6, and then day 7 down towards the southeast again. So Storm Prediction Center is going to have to make a judgment call for sure, because the SIPS here has been showing very, very good run-to-run consistency. Even we're talking 48 full hours back, and it has not deviated its depiction very much. We got it here, and then down here. Well, excuse me, not that far to the south, but down here. So, let's go over to our European model. I have that pulled up. Let's see. So here we go. There's our cyclogenesis. Yeah, see, so the Euro actually does a fairly decent job at highlighting what it is that we were more or less just kind of discussing using the lava lamp metaphor. If you look, here's our surface low, here's our warm front right there, and then here's our really, really elongated cold front. It's almost difficult to track it because it looks like there's a trough in here, there's a trough in here, a little prefrontal trough right there, but then here's your actual cold front. And if you notice, we have high pressure up here, and we have high pressure up here. So as this low deepens, you have to imagine like a fluid. If you imagine what the color that gas looks like when it gets in water, that rainbowish color, if you imagine it kind of flowing like that, you imagine the gas coloring in the water is your high pressure, and then the low is your little whirlpool or whatever's happening to your water at the surface. As this cold air gets pulled in on the back side of it, it's going to help to sandwich that warm front from going any further to the north. That warm air is not going to punch through the cold air. That's not how it works. Which, fun fact, I was watching the other day a video as I was on my way to the gym. Somebody was talking about high pressure and the 2024 hurricane season. And, I was listening closely. First time ever discovering this channel. And I was like, okay, I like this. I might consider hitting the like and subscribe button. And then homie had the nerve to say, and if you guys know, cold air is a lot less dense than warm air. And that's when I'm like, X, I'm done. You lost me. No, you had me going. You were reeling me in. I was following the bait. I was ready to take a bite and hit the subscribe button, and then homie said cold air is less dense and more buoyant than warm air. And I'm like, okay, nope. Unless he just accidentally said that, unless he meant to, strike it and flip it and just didn't realize it. Maybe that's the case, but as soon as he said cold air is less dense than warm air, I'm like, okay, that's like your most basic thermodynamic principle. And I was like, all right, sorry. You had me, and then you lost me. So if you think about it thermodynamically, it does look like we have an occlusion at this point. Here's our low, very small occlusion forming up right there. Cold front, warm front down off the coast. In which case, that would mean our severe weather is going to stay confined to this general area. Especially as you get further to the south, if we can keep this surface high pressure ridging on the back side of it, like you can see in through here, the isobars stacked right up against one another, and we can look at a thickness gradient to determine the level of advection as well. This would be your severe weather sector. Up to the north here, you're just going to have your heavy rainfall. Looks like some slight indications of some mixed wintry precip, maybe some very light flurries that might try to stick. Probably not. And maybe some icing. But a lot of this is going to be a heavy rainfall event up to the north side of this low at this point. This is as we turn the clock into Wednesday. So we shall see. Let's in fact go over to our thickness packing, our thickness lines, and see what we got going on there. Let's go forward in time. And yeah, see, so I kind of agree with our SIPs. I think I agree with our SIPs. Because if you look, here's our greatest thickness packing right in through here, which would tell me just by looking only at this chart, and again, this is a preliminary look, that our most unstable sector is here. So it's going to be a close call. There's going to be, a few miles worth of error is our margin of error here, and we have to watch to the north to see if we do get a little bit more wiggle room out of the thickness lines, or not of the but the warm front. And then notice here, if you look, the model is also doing a fantastic job of showing us what I was more or less trying to describe with my hands. Notice how you have that little blue thickness line bleeding over out of there like some lava flowing around the backside of a mountain trying to wrap in on the backside of the low. Very cool. Let's go forward a little bit more, and yeah, there you go. So I would definitely think that Storm Prediction Center looks like we might need to bump this a little further to the south. There's your occlusion. There's a very pronounced cold front, and there's a very pronounced warm front, and then here's all that, like I said, guys, that lava flowing on the backside of it, that bona fide CP air flowing in on the backside of that low. So anywhere from the triple point and north, you're not going to have as great of a severe weather risk, which would tell me that we need to focus our efforts on back briefing individuals into Tennessee, the Carolinas, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia. We might need to rethink where it is that we're stamping our severe weather risk. Let's go back to day 5. Yeah, see, I would definitely think if I were Storm Prediction Center, I would go ahead and take this exact same shape and do this. That's what I would do. I would just take it, and like for my SpongeBob fans out there, we should take that yellow shape and push it somewhere else, and we should just push it down to the south. That's what I would do. I agree with day 4. Day 5 is just a bit of a discontinuity. That's what I would do. Do we have any sim reflectivity models that can go out that far? I don't think so. I think the GFS might have a very low-res simulated reflectivity. Let's see. I thought it did anyways. I could have sworn that it does. Dew point... Maybe not. Let's go over to our dew point and take a look at it for old time's sake. See if it matches up with what we're describing using our thickness lines. So there's Tuesday, max heating of the day. And yeah, see, so Tuesday, your dew points are not as conducive up there through Kentucky, West Virginia, and the Midwest, the greater Midwest, the lower Great Lakes. If you look, our dew points are very favorable down here in the southeast, right in through there if you take into account the Appalachian Mountain Range right in through here where you see those little indications of the blue shading. Those are your mountains deviating the surface dew points. So it does seem like our greatest area of contrast is right in through here, and as that continues to move southeast, we're going to have ignition right along the leading edge of that. And naturally, as that area shrinks and it encounters the mountain range, you're going to have a greater low-level velocity, if you will, of those dew points trying to surge north. So maybe we could just expand on our thunderstorm threat and just do it in levels. Level 1, 2 further to the north, level 1, 2 to the south, maybe a possible level 3 if things continue to uptrend. We'll see. But I think I'm on board with the SIPs a little bit more than, there we go, than SPC. I think the mid-Atlantic and the southeast might not want to drop their guard on this one. They might want to keep it up just in case. The further south they push it, the more fun I'll have Tuesday and into Wednesday. That is true, yes. So we'll definitely have to be watching for sure. I'm sure you'll have fun chasing lots of rural roads to chase on. Oh, definitely. So we'll see. And then, of course, Florida dropping the ball like they always do. Not getting much down here, but we'll see. It's still a little far out. I'm telling you, our time is going to come during the hurricane season. Right now, we're enjoying this little hiatus of nothing happening down here in Florida, but actually, I don't know. It looks like we might get a little action from this next Wednesday. Might try to get a little action from it, because, I mean, we still have a very good gradient right into here. Look at these north to south isobars and these almost perfectly perpendicular thickness lines. So we still have some pretty good advection moving through. And there's your 576 line and 570 line. So still an impressive gradient. So I don't know. We might get some thunderstorm activity here in Florida on the Wednesday time frame. We shall see. Let's go over and do a little sanity check. Let's see what our National Weather Service is calling for here in Orlando. National Weather Service Orlando forecast. Let's see if they have us slated for rain on Wednesday. Tuesday, mostly sunny. Let's see, where's I want the 7-day forecast, though. Hazardous weather outlook. Really? For what? Oh, rip currents. Okay. I was going to say, what is that? Why do we have a dangerous outlook? Okay, forgive me. I'm not very used to the National Weather Service page. Where do I go to get our 7-day forecast? I don't want just till Tuesday. Let's see. 7-day forecast. Oh, there it is. Yeah, look at that. A 50% chance of showers and thunderstorms, mostly cloudy with a high near 84. Windy with a south-southwest wind, 15 to 20 miles an hour with gusts as high as 35. So they're picking up what we're putting down here as well. We got those prefrontal winds out of the southwest before that front comes in and switches us to the northwest. So cool. At least we're not completely out to lunch. We know what we're doing. But all right, folks, I got about 20 minutes before I got to clock into work. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the live stream. I'm working a modified shift today. Normally, I'd have much more time to spend with you guys. I wanted to get this out on the channel, so hopefully it'll disseminate just a little bit. We'll probably get our usual 100 views or something like that. So whatever. But we're going to put out on TikTok and Instagram as well. And we will see exactly what continues to shake out. Might try to do another live briefing tonight, very late tonight after we're situated out in West Florida for the MacDill Air Show. And then maybe early in the morning, if I continue to see things uptrend, I'll do another live stream. Maybe. Don't hold me to that one. I might do a live stream before going to the air show. We'll see. To be determined. Everything is to be determined, and I really want to see if they adjust their Day 5 depiction. I really want to see if they bump it down towards the southeast, because everything seems more conducive and favorable the further south and east you go, as opposed to keeping it up towards the north. So we'll see if our forecast verifies. Again, you can go to the hourly graphical tab. Oh, that's true. I forgot about that. Where is that? Here, is this it? No, this isn't it. Is it? Oh, yeah, it is. Here we go. 48-hour period. I don't want the 48-hour period. I want a 7-day period. This reminds me of, oh, here we go, forward 2 days. This reminds me of the meteograms that we used to forecast off of in the military. So let's see. There's our thunderstorm risk. There's your Wednesday risk. Here's your rainfall risk. So yeah, Wednesday it does look like we're pinging on something. So yeah, there you go. We'll see what happens down here in Florida. I'm not looking for a severe weather threat, but I might just preliminarily start broadcasting it on my channel, because the last time, even some of the big-name folks down here in Florida were like, we're going to get a little bit of rain. And the next thing you know, we had more severe weather warnings and Swisses than a lot of the areas in this last outbreak, because we're just naturally in that point of the year where Florida is most of the time the most unstable state in the United States. Most of the time. Obviously, you know, you can argue that, make a case, but just nowadays we have the Gulf Stream and the warming waters of the Gulf on the opposite side. So that's when the sea breeze starts kicking in, and we'll see once El Nino kicks its way out if we start to get that sea breeze really establishing itself. And you know what? Just because we're in such a small, intimate group, there's only about 12 of us in here, let's go and take a look at our sea surface analysis right now, see what's going on out there. So, yeah, El Nino's still doing its thing. In fact, look at that. Wow, we've actually had some warming out there in El Nino. Still some cold area or some cooling going on off the South American coastline. And then Enso regions out further to the Central Pacific are still cooling. But we had a little bit of warming going on in some of our regions. And then, see, this is what I was talking about in our live brief the other day. If you guys look, Atlantic is kind of cooling off a little bit. This is our 7-day anomaly change. So it's still hot out there, don't get me wrong, but it does seem like maybe the transition between NAOs is what's helping to kind of cool the waters off, but we're still hot regardless. That's not good. Still hot. So, anyways, more to come on that. We'll have to see if our NAO resets itself and we can start getting a little bit more of that warming again as we get closer to tropical season. PDO is still in a negative stance. Warmest waters off towards Asia, Russia. Coldest waters off our west coast in British Columbia. And then here's your 1 and 2. 1 and 2 is completely dawn. Whoa, 1 and 2 is still going in. 1 and 2 is approaching a weak La Nina. Look at that. So Enso 1 plus 2 is definitely dead. There is no El Nino, so El Nino is starting to collapse. What about 4? There goes 4, coming down to a very weak El Nino. 3, I believe, is warm. Yep, I was going to say 3 is probably warming. 3 and 4 is definitely trying to warm, holding steady. So it's happening. And what's crazy to see, too, is it's kind of doing like, every now and again. So now it's a matter of, are we going to crash and burn, or is it just going to steadily ride the wave and head on down towards that neutral point? But all right, ladies and gentlemen, we will talk to you again next time. Thank you very much for everybody joining me for this very early iteration of Weather Center Live. We will talk to you very soon, and we'll definitely keep you updated. Go on, head over to One Nation Weather's channel as well, please, if you don't mind. Show him some love and support as he has our weather briefings and our live discussions. Definitely a phenomenal channel that also needs to be brought up as well as we get closer to the full-fledged severe weather season as well as the hurricane season. Him and I are likely going to be doing a lot of collabs going forward. So definitely check him out, especially since he's very on point with the day-to-day videos. I've been slacking. I'm struggling, to tell you the truth. I'm experimenting with all sorts of different things, and I need to stop it because I'm going to shoot myself in the foot when it comes to this YouTube channel. But regardless, definitely be on the lookout for updates from both of us, guys. Stay tuned to your local weather stations and National Weather Service, and keep an eye on the Storm Prediction Center charts if you can, if you have the means of doing so, as we round out the end of this week. And on a lighter note, as we end this week, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and you can bring in the weekend on a positive note, regardless of where you are and where you're tuning in, guys. And we'll see you next time. This is Weather Center Nazario, signing out.